Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today, we have a whole slate of Steelers news and rumors to discuss here this evening. While you're probably watching the college football playoff tonight between Ole Miss and Miami. So we're going to start today's show with some coaching rumors. Arthur Smith was requested for a head coaching interview today. I'll let you guys know my thoughts on the possibility Arthur Smith could get a head coaching job this cycle. Then the Dolphins fired Mike McDaniel today. Could he be the next Steelers offensive coordinator? I'll answer that question as well. Then Adam Thielen went on Christian Kuntz's podcast this week, and he had some very interesting nuggets on Aaron Rodgers' practice habits and the offense here in Pittsburgh. Also, I'm going to explain why Aaron Rodgers' average depth of target is so low this year and why it's not a bad thing. And then we'll finish up today's show with an update on the AFC North head coaching searches going on currently in Cleveland and Baltimore. Now, before we get into the content today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button because we are in the middle of a very heated subscriber battle between us and Jeremy Chuggs' Texans Today channel. We just took the lead on these guys yesterday, and Texans is still right behind us, but I want to keep the lead here, guys, because Jeremy Beadling, or Jeremy Chuggs, as we like to call him here at Chat Sports, has been on my ass all week here with this playoff game coming up. This is what he tweeted just moments ago. He said, "Crazy with two eye emojis. Steelers content creator Jack Sperry predicting a loss on Monday Night Football to the Texans in the wild card round." You know what? I bet you bet your ass I'm going to be predicting a loss for the Texans on Monday night there, Chug. So if you guys want to show just how crazy we are here on Steelers Talk, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. Let's widen this lead versus Texans today, and let's absolutely bury these fools from H-Town. All right, now let's get into the top story of the day, which is that Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith and former offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans has been requested for a head coaching interview with Tennessee. Now, Art is not eligible to do any interviews this week during Wild Card Week, but if the Steelers advance to the divisional round or if the Steelers lose, no matter what, next week he can interview. But today at his weekly press conference, Arthur Smith did not seem like he's super focused or honestly all that interested in the Tennessee Titans head coaching job. He really didn't make any bones about it here. This is what he said earlier today on the south side of Pittsburgh. He says, "That's not something I'm going to focus on because the only thing that matters is my current job. Anything like that is a distraction. All of my focus is on our guys, these guys here in Pittsburgh. Anything I take away from that is not doing my job, so all I care about is the Steelers." So it doesn't even seem like if the Steelers win next week that he's even going to consider taking head coaching interviews with anybody in the National Football League. And, I think whether, he takes those interviews or not, I do believe that Arthur Smith probably doesn't get a head coaching job in the NFL this cycle, and I think he will be back as the offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers next year. Like, I'm over 90% sure Art will be back next year. Now, I know some fans don't like Arthur Smith and think his offense is quote-unquote too bland. We'll discuss the Steelers' offense later in today's show and why I disagree with that. It's certainly not stopping, Steelers fans on Twitter and on social media from speculating about Mike McDaniel and wondering if he could be the next offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And listen, man, if Art takes a head coaching job or if somehow Mike Tomlin decides to move on from Arthur Smith and Mike McDaniel wants to come, coach the offense here in Pittsburgh, I would absolutely love that. I consider McDaniel one of the top 10 offensive play callers in the entire sport right now. I think he's a phenomenally creative offensive play caller, and he tailors his offenses to the strengths and weaknesses of the personnel that he has. I think, there's a pretty decent chance, first of all, he gets another head coaching job this year. It sounds like Cleveland and Atlanta are pretty interested in him. But unfortunately, I think the Steelers getting him is highly, highly, highly unlikely. And that's for two reasons. Number one, he has no connection to Mike Tomlin or the Pittsburgh Steelers. So usually in this business, guys, it's like any business. It's not what you know necessarily, it's who you know, and it's who you're buddies with. And, McDaniel has a bunch of connections to a bunch of other teams in this league because the Shanahan tree is very vast in the modern day NFL, whereas nobody in that tree outside of Arthur Smith, and he's not really connected to that tree, exists here in Pittsburgh. And Arthur Smith has no relationship with Mike McDaniel. So there's really no reason for Mike to be like, out of all these teams that would want me as their offensive coordinator, I'm picking the Pittsburgh Steelers. No, I think that the most likely landing spot for him is either Cleveland and Atlanta in their head coaching jobs, or potentially the Washington Commanders with their offensive coordinator opening. They got Jaden Daniels. Mike McDaniel credits Dan Quinn for helping him with his sobriety and getting him back in the league after developing kind of a bad reputation. So he says he's indebted to Dan Quinn for his career. And also, there's some talent there in Washington. And Adam Peters is their GM there in Washington is the former assistant GM in San Francisco. So that one makes a lot of sense. But I hate to break it to you guys, Mike McDaniel likely not going to be the next offensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So what say you guys? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. What is the percent chance that Arthur Smith is back with the Steelers next season? Put it on a scale of 0 to 100 for me down there in the comment section. For me, I'll give it about a 95% chance. The only 5% that I'm leaving there is if he gets a head coaching job. So for me, I think Art will be back next year. But let me know what you guys think for today's pin question. Just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And while I tell you about Prize Picks today, give me a number between 0 and 100. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. And it is officially the new year. 2026 is officially here, folks. And in my opinion, this is the best time of the year for watching sports. Bowl games, playoff games in both college and professional football. Basketball and hockey season is now in full swing. It's all happening all at once. And while all that action is going on, there's one place where it feels so good to be right, and that's Prize Picks. Prize Picks is super simple to play. You just pick more than or less than at least 2 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. My favorite feature about Prize Picks is how you play is up to you guys. If you want a little bit more flexibility, you can choose the flex play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you're feeling really strong about a particular lineup and want a bigger payout, you can go for the power play. No matter how you play, though, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test and make some money. That is, if you know a ball. And this week, take advantage of the 99% off max discount on Caleb Williams passing yards, where Caleb only needs to get 1 passing yard this weekend for him to help out your lineup during Wild Card weekend. So for this weekend's lineup here, I'm taking the less on C.J. Stroud passing yards. I'm taking the more on Kenny Gainwell receptions and the more on Pat Freiermuth receiving yards. I put in this lineup before that max discount was made available. So this is what we're going to be rolling with on Monday night. So if you guys want to download the Prize Picks app today and take advantage of that max discount before Wild Card weekend begins, use code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Now this week, new Steelers wide receiver Adam Thielen joined Christian Kuntz on his podcast. By the way, it's a podcast worth checking out. Kuntz has a bunch of Steelers players on there, and there's a bunch of good, Steelers player podcasts, actually. Cam Hayward's got a good one. Joe Hayden and James Harrison, 2 former Steelers, have a really good one as well. So there's lots of good Steelers podcast content out there. But I thought Thielen had some very interesting things to say about Steelers quarterback Aaron Rodgers and his journey in adapting to this offense that Pittsburgh runs here with the Steelers. And, fans say it's milquetoast, it's boring, it's all this different stuff, it's archaic, it's old school. But, he definitely details just how detailed the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is and how complex it is because of Aaron Rodgers' intellect and how much control he has at the line of scrimmage and what he expects from his wide receivers on a daily basis. This is what Thielen had to say about Rodgers' practice habits. He says he's the first guy I've been around that will really test guys through the week of practice and try to make it tough on guys. Last second signals, or maybe some signals that maybe he wouldn't normally use in a game. Just wants to know how much you know and if he can trust you on game day. And this is the type of thing, man, that makes the players around a certain player better when they test these players during practice before a game setting, so that when you get into the game, it's like it's maybe not easy, but it's easier than it is in practice. All right, you guys know the old saying, practice, make practice really, really hard so that it's easier when you get into a game environment and the pressure is actually on. And Rodgers, with how much detail that he requires out of his wide receivers, he makes these players smarter and makes them better, which can only mean good things for younger receivers like Calvin Austin III and even Roman Wilson. Now, another takeaway that I took from Thielen's appearance on Kuntz's podcast is that Pittsburgh's offense, with Rodgers at the helm, realm is very, very complex. Adam, has been talking the last several weeks about how much he's had to study, and Kuntz even made a comment about how his playbook is like this thick, and it's just a huge binder filled with hundreds of pages of notes and all these different things. This is what Thielen had to say about the Steelers offense and how complex it is. He says if it's a run play and maybe you want something on the backside of the run, so if they overload or blitz or have a bad look in the run game, he can just spit out an RPO. Talking about Rodgers, you can kind of like with that Pat Freiermuth play we saw in the seam last week. You kind of have some of those run game checks and alerts or signals. Maybe it's cover zero, or he sees something he wants to get the ball out quick or attack a certain coverage that he can see coming. Maybe it's the individual route. Maybe it's a full concept. At first, I was very overwhelmed because there was so much stuff. I think he does a phenomenal job in games of just being over-communicative. So, definitely Thielen is saying that this offense here in Pittsburgh is actually quite complex. Now, I can hear some of you guys at home saying, but Jack, Rodgers doesn't throw the ball down the field. It's just checkdowns. How complex can this offense really be if he's just checking the ball down? And listen, man, it is true. Rodgers doesn't push the ball down the field as much as some of the other quarterbacks in the league this year. He's 40th out of 42 eligible quarterbacks according to Next Gen Stats, with just a 5.9 average depth of target this season. And people take this stat and say, check down Rodgers, and he doesn't want to push the ball down the field, or he doesn't want to get hit. But what people miss is there's actually a good reason why Aaron Rodgers has decided to kind of make the Steelers offense play this way, where he's getting the ball out quickly, he's getting the ball out to his playmakers in space, and it's really been part of the success that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had on offense this year. And I think it's really a sign of a team that's understanding what they do well and leaning into that versus trying to be something that they're not, which is a downfield passing team. And I think that the big reasons why this works is, number one, Pittsburgh has a great yak threat team. All right, we've got a bunch of them. All right, you got Jaylen Warren. You've got Kenny Gainwell. Both guys can catch the ball out of the backfield really well. They both run good routes. They're both good pass protectors as well, by the way. And they can make guys miss, and they can pick up big first downs on just little check downs. Then you got Darnell Washington, who can run over people as like a check flat type of guy, right? And then you got DK Metcalf, who's one of the best yak receivers in the National Football League. Calvin Austin III can run with it as well. So Aaron Rodgers is looking at the skill sets of the receivers and the running backs and the tight ends here in Pittsburgh, and they're saying, hey, man, these guys can run, all right? I'm going to let them run in space, and I'm going to give them opportunities to make plays after the catch. You guys can take a look at this awesome tweet from Mike DeFabo, who covers the Steelers for The Athletic. Really like this one from him. I retweeted it today. He says, Aaron Rodgers finished the year with the lowest air yards per attempt, which is 6.0 in the league. Actually, it's 5.9, but neither here nor there. He says, but the Steelers led the league in yards after the catch per reception at 6.5. Individually, Jaylen Warren, with a whopping 11 yards after the catch per reception, is first in the league. Kenny Gainwell is 18th, and DK Metcalf is 21st. So you've got a number of players here that can run like deer and make guys miss after the catch. And then Rodgers, being the extremely intelligent quarterback that he is, he's getting them the ball in space and putting them in opportunities where they can make plays after the catch, while also having a high percentage look in terms of the throw that he has to execute to get them the football. Also, it helps out the pass rush, all right? The Steelers right now have the lowest pressure rate on their quarterback in the league this season, all right? Like, to go from where we were before, where the Steelers were taking a bunch of sacks, everyone's ripping on our offensive line, to now, this team has the lowest pressure rate in the National Football League, and frankly, it's not close. It's two things. Number one, the offensive line has gotten a lot better this year. Credit to Pat Meyer, the offensive line coach, for getting this young group of offensive linemen the gel, but it's also Aaron Rodgers. He's got the third fastest average time to throw in the league this year among quarterbacks, and he's first among starters. The only guys with faster average time to throws are Brady Cook from the Jets, and Davis Mills, the backup quarterback for Houston, all right? 2.59 seconds. It protects him. It protects the offense. It prevents, these negative plays that kill drives. Aaron Rodgers deserves a lot of credit for that. Then also, Pittsburgh doesn't have a lot of elite separators down the field on their team, all right? This is something that is a weakness of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And, I'm sure Rodgers, if he wanted to, could hold that ball in the pocket a little bit longer and see see if some guys would come open, later in the progression. But, I don't really want a quarterback that plays that way in this offense. I want a quarterback that's smart, that's going to be a distributor, that's going to get the ball out quickly, doesn't take sacks. Because if you guys want a guy that's going to hold the ball forever and then, force the ball down the field and take a lot of sacks, that's what we had last year with Russell Wilson, okay? And once again, this was not a wide receiver room that was very good at getting separation down the field last season, and especially when George Pickens got injured last year, Russell Wilson had nobody to throw to down the field, but he was still holding the ball forever. He took a bunch of sacks, which led to a lot of, destroyed drives, and, the Steelers offense was not as good last year as it is this year with Aaron Rodgers, okay? So when people say, oh, Aaron Rodgers, a check down Charlie, all this different stuff, I don't buy that whatsoever because, we do check it down quite a bit, but we do it in a smart way where we're getting the ball to our playmakers in space who can make guys miss and they can run after the catch. And, we turn an easy completion into a medium to long gain by playing smart football. So if you have a problem with that, how about you go be a fan of the New York Giants and Russell Wilson? So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Do you want Aaron Rodgers to come back for another season? Yes or no? If he wants to come back, I'm all for Rodgers coming back for another year. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. We'll finish up today's show with an AFC North head coaching search update. The Ravens and Browns are getting their interview lists together here to try and replace Kevin Stefanski and John Harbaugh, respectively. We'll start with the Ravens, and they've got currently 8 people that they have either requested or have executed an interview with. Brian Flores is kind of the nightmare situation for Steelers fans. I don't think we want to see Coach Flo, on the Ravens sideline moving forward. But Clint Kubiak, one of the top OC candidates for head coach this year, Matt Nagy of the Kansas City Chiefs, Robert Saleh of the San Francisco 49ers, Anthony Weaver, who used to actually coach and play for the Baltimore Ravens. That's going to be one to kind of keep your eye on there. Definitely somebody to keep your eye on as a defensive mind from Miami. Then Davis Webb and Vance Joseph from the Denver Broncos, and then Cliff Kingsbury, the former Washington Commanders offensive coordinator. Then when it comes to the Browns, they've only put together 5 names so far. They've already done interviews with their defensive and offensive coordinators, Jim Schwartz and Tommy Rees, respectively. Then they're going to interview Dan Pitcher, the offensive coordinator from Cincinnati. I haven't really heard his name thrown around all that much, but I guess he's getting an interview. And then Aiden Durd, the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator in Seattle under Mike McDaniel. And then Todd Monken, the former Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator, will also get an interview. But according to recent reports, the Cleveland Browns are also extremely interested in hiring Mike McDaniel to be their next head coach. Apparently that organization has been an admirer of his for many seasons, and if they can get McDaniel as their next head coach, I think they probably will hire him. But the question for me is, does he want to go to Cleveland? Like, does he want to go with Shadur Sanders and with Deshaun Watson and deal with that quarterback room next year? I mean, I'm sure he would love that defense, but I don't know if I love the quarterback situation in Cleveland right now. And if I were McDaniel, I think I'd rather take a different job than Cleveland's head coaching vacancy. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Who's going to be the next Ravens and Browns head coaches? Who is going to be the next? Who's going to be the fresh meat here in the AFC North? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. That'll be it for today's News and Rumors edition of Steelers Talk. We'll have more coverage for you guys leading up to this week's wild card matchup between the Steelers and Texans. So if you don't want to miss anything, make sure you click that subscribe button right now. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.